Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today we had the pleasure of interviewing Shawn McNicholas. He is a commercial real estate investor and syndicator. He also owns Raising Private Money with his wife, Amy Mahjoory, and it's basically a coaching platform to teach people how to raise private capital for a bunch of different real estate deals and asset classes. But we really got a masterclass today on raising private capital and the kind of psychology and negotiation side of things, and just like how the human brain works, and teaching people the benefits of leveraging their money outside of maybe their 401k or traditional methods. And Shawn really gave us the how-to with actionable advice, which was, I think, just one of our best episodes in a long time.
Yeah, the sales 101, not 101 actually, like sales, diving into the details of sales too. That was what this episode I thought brought. We talked about, like, as you mentioned, the psychology, but the negotiation, just a bunch of tactics on how the way people think. That was kind of the best. I felt like it was the best part of the episode, because raising private capital and building a real estate portfolio and building out your team, all of those things involve you selling yourself in some way. And Shawn kind of brought that to the forefront. He started out, Shawn did a brief stint in the NFL, and then he quickly realized that building his corporate career, like, this just wasn't for him. Like, he didn't want to do it. He mentioned in the beginning of the episode he had a good friend who he worked with in the same job who left and said, "I'm going to go be a real estate investor." Shawn's like, "No, you're not. Like, how are you going to do that?" And then the guy ended up doing it. So Shawn kind of latched on to him. They built a mentorship together. It's a pretty cool evolution where I think a lot of people can resonate, because there's many people that are sitting in corporate jobs that are like, can I leave this? Am I too strapped? How's it going to be possible? It is. Shawn did it. He's only 40. He said he was like 42, 43 years old, and he's built this empire of commercial real estate. He's a keynote speaker. He's a coach. He has a program. So you could tell we vibed in the episode. It was a really good one.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite to date. So let's bring him in.
Let's do it.
When you have investment properties and tenants, you need a good system in place for collecting rent to make it easy as possible. And RentRedi can help you with everything. When you sign up for RentRedi, you can start adding your properties, inviting tenants, and creating charges. You can even set up automatic rent reminders and create auto late fees as well. For tenants, they can pay via ACH, card, or even cash using RentRedi's web and mobile apps. They can also use an automatic payment setup and sign up for rent reporting, so they get rewarded for paying rent on time. RentRedi saves you time and hassle by automating rent collection, and you can manage everything from one dashboard. For our Weekly Juice listeners, RentRedi's given us a special 50% off for any RentRedi plan using our code WeeklyJuice at rentredi.com. That's RentRedi.com using the code WeeklyJuice. That's WeeklyJuice to save 50% off any RentRedi plan. Shawn, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. As we chatted a little bit pre-recording, we've done some research on you. We jokingly said you married up. We have heard your wife Amy Mahjoory's episode on Bigger Pockets. She's an absolute beast, as are you. You guys are the ultimate power couple. So we are very excited to have half of the team on the podcast today.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's the lower half, Ryan and Corey, but I promise she'll get on here sooner than later, and just appreciate you guys. Congratulations to the listeners who are on here, because what I love about these two is they give actionable advice in the investing world, and some people want to wow you with all the things that they've done. Our job here is to give you guys stuff that you can actually implement and start doing in your life to make investing never easier, but I guess more improved, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're all about. So, Shawn, if you could take us through your journey, man. Like, how did you first maybe talk pre-real estate investing, and then how you got into it? Like, what sparked the light bulb to say, wow, like, real estate's for me in my future, and kind of take us to where you got today?
Yeah, so kind of the traditional path that a lot of us go on, right? I'm one of 7 children, and my mom had 3 boys. I was lucky number 2. Then my mom wanted a fourth baby, and she gave birth to quadruplets, 2 boys, 2 girls, all at the same time. So we always say the good Lord misunderstood our order. We wanted a fourth child, and we got 4 more childs. So never a dull moment, my family. And we were always taught the traditional path, even though we didn't have a lot. We always had a roof overhead. We always had food in our bellies. So I went to high school, went to college. I went there to play football and accidentally got a degree while I was there. Actually was able to sign a contract with the New York Jets. And I don't know if you guys know what the NFL stands for, but it stands for not for long for me. My career lasted a total of 6 weeks, so I had to get a job, and I landed in the corporate world. And I was really good at the corporate thing, right? That carrot that they dangle. And I was really good at getting promotions and hitting sales numbers and doing all that stuff. But I just got to that feeling where it was like the harder and harder I worked, the less and less I was appreciated. And the more I was building someone else's dream instead of my own dream. And it was interesting because one of my colleagues, a very close friend and my original mentor, actually left the corporate world, and he told us he was getting into real estate. And this guy was from Ventura, California. He was a surfer dude. And, he'd wear board shorts and flip-flops to work if he could, and a backwards hat. And I was like, okay, you're going out into the real estate world. We thought he was having like a third life crisis, right? And then I started seeing him on social media, and this guy's traveling and he's going on surf trips and he's seeing the world. So I finally reached out to him. I'm like, what are you doing that you get all this free time? And he's like, exactly what I said when I left. I got into real estate. And I'm like, well, if this guy can do it, like I can do it. Like this guy barely got a high school degree, right? And I had a college degree, and I was like, I think I'm smarter than he is. Little did I know I wasn't. But I saw someone who had success, and I believed in myself that I could do it. And I just started with that feeling of, if I put all this energy into all these promotions and building someone else's dream, what if I put it into my own? So I went out, I bought a house, and decided to flip it. No education, no knowledge, didn't know what I was doing. And this is back in 2006 in Southern California, and the market's going like crazy. I bought it, ran into a ton of challenges, flipped it. But because the market was just going up, I ended up making a big number on that project on a rehab. And I was like, dude, this is so easy, right? It's just like TV shows. And so I was like, well, instead of 1, I'm going to go buy 4, because that'll give me the ability to walk away from my job. And I bought those 4 in 2007. And then that crept into 2008. And I'm guessing you guys can tell how the rest of the story goes, because I didn't know what I was doing. I lacked the knowledge. I lacked the education. I had all of my own money in those deals, ended up foreclosing on 2, short selling 2, and declared bankruptcy in my 20s. So I went to the school of hard knocks when it came to real estate, because I lacked knowledge and I lacked education. I will say the team colors for the school of hard knocks is black and blue. I'm just glad I did it in my 20s instead of later on in life with a family and with kids. I was single at the time. So I knew real estate worked, guys. I just needed to know how to work it, right? And I finally reached out to that buddy of mine, and I was like, how are you so successful? And he said, well, I found a mentor. I found a coach. So I joined that same mentor. I joined that same coach. And they literally, I'll never forget the 3-day event I went to. I thought it was one of those get rich quick programs, right? That you see a late night infomercial for. And I was hook, line, and sinker, because literally in the first hour and a half, they taught me everything I did wrong. And I was like, these guys have done it. These guys have a lot more experience than I do. I just got to copy and paste, right? What they've already done. And that's what I did. So I started wholesaling. I started flipping. I was still working a corporate job. I moved into rental properties, single family. I moved into mobile home rentals. And then in 2015, literally in 2014, I met my wife, Amy. It was love at first rehab. We met at a real estate conference. And she still hasn't figured out what an exit strategy is 9 years later, which is a blessing. So we both had our own flipping businesses, right? But then we got into commercial real estate in 15, and we started realizing, wow, like our ability to raise capital is putting us in different asset classes now. And when I realized what commercial real estate could be for my family and for our future, I realized it could be a game changer. So since then, we've invested and we're actually part owners in over $500 million worth of commercial real estate between apartment buildings, shopping centers, office buildings. Some were LPs, some we are the people who did everything, right? And we still flip houses. We actually live in Austin, Texas now. We're in the middle of a 10-unit flip in San Diego, California, as we speak right now, which is a property downtown. So we're still actively in the business. But what was interesting is in 2020, when COVID came, we had literally just unloaded some properties. And my wife and I looked at each other and we didn't know what the world was going to do. Like a lot of us, right? COVID just came and we're just like, what are we going to do? And my wife looked at me for the first time and she said, we've worked our ass off. We're financially in a place where we don't have to work if we don't want to. Why don't we just take a break? And I was like, I'm in. So we literally get to watch our 4-month, 5-month-old daughter start to grow up and just be mom and dad. Had a lot of free time and it was great for me. I started golfing more than I ever have, and I actually got worse at golfing, which is kind of impossible. And my wife doesn't like to be doing nothing for too long. And six weeks into it, right before we went to bed one night, she's like, I'm going to start a coaching program. I'm like, where the heck did that come from, right? And I said, well, what do you want to start a coaching program for? And she's like, I'm going to start teaching people how to raise money. Everybody comes to me because they need help raising capital. And that's something that my wife, Amy, never struggled with. I struggled a little bit at the beginning because I never had friends and family I could reach out to because they weren't in a financial place to lend. I had to, go through, hard money lenders charging insane rates and had to fill in the gap. Well, Amy, because of her family background culturally, she wasn't allowed to go to friends and family. It's just not something you do. So literally to this day, fast forward 10 years later, she's never raised $1 from a friend or family member. So she created all these techniques and strategies and completely outside organic box ways of raising capital. And she's like, I'm just going to put all my brain on videos, show people how I do this, and let's see what happens. Maybe it'll be fun. Maybe we'll really enjoy it. Fast forward 3 years later, we have over 300 students all over the world who are copying and pasting what myself and Amy have done, and our students are raising millions upon millions of dollars. And we get to showcase these at big events that we do 2-3 times a year. We actually have one coming up November 4th and 5th in Austin, Texas, that we're very excited about. So long story short, probably longer than you guys wanted, but that's a quick synopsis into how I got to where I am, and more importantly, met the greatest business partner in the world.
That's awesome, Shawn. Thank you for sharing. I think this is I wouldn't call it traditional, but a lot of people run into a similar issue that you did, right? You kind of run out of your own money and you're like, how do I scale this thing? And the best way to do it is to use other people's, right? And then you're the conduit and you have all the knowledge, and there's so much money out there. I've heard numerous times that the money is the easiest thing to find, right? Maybe not for everyone, but once you learn, that can be the case. So I'm curious about your first time that you raised money, like that transition, right? Ryan and I have done it. We have great partners to make sure that our operations is intact and our deals are going well so far. But I'm trying to think about my own experience. I'm curious about yours. When you first started raising, like what was that like? Especially since Amy couldn't go to any of her friends and family, like you were raising from strangers, right? It may seem like second nature to you now, but maybe take us back to when you first started and how that felt and what actions you took.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys had similar feelings, right? It's nerve-wracking at the time, right? But one of the greatest things that mentors taught to me, and we drill this into our students all the time, is you're not asking to borrow money at the end of the day. Let me be very clear about that. You're not asking to borrow money. You're offering an opportunity. If you come from a place of like, you hope they lend you money and you hope they fund your deal and, and you're begging, you've lost before you started. If you truly are coming from a position of power and a position of purpose, and I'd rather have their money with me than in the stock market or in the crypto market because of the volatility. When you come with that power and that presence of we're offering opportunity instead of borrowing money, it changes the game. So you can have all that mindset ready to roll, but it's still nerve-wracking as hell when you're out there doing it. My first private lender came from a RIA, right? It was an older gentleman. I literally will never forget it. It was like one of those Thursday meetings. People were smoking like outside and all the air was coming in. This was in Northeast Ohio where I grew up. And I just remember meeting this guy who didn't want to flip houses. He didn't want to own rental property. And I'm like, so like, why are you here? He goes, I'm looking, a place to park money. Like I have a home equity line of credit. I have a retirement account. I have this and I have that. And because of my education, I felt very comfortable talking about all those different ways he had to fund those transactions, but I was still nervous, right? It's that whole concept of fake it till you make it. I fumbled and bumbled my private money presentation when we met for coffee a couple weeks later. You know what I mean? I kept repeating myself. I kept repeating the 3 sexiest words I was ever taught, which is protected, secured, and insured. And I just said, every question he asked me, like I had all these frequently asked questions memorized in my head and I knew they were coming. And I forgot them all, blanked out, and just kept repeating, but you're protected, secured, and insured. I just kept saying that because those are words that are make people feel a lot more confident. So I was nervous, I was scared, but education solves so much of this. And that's the missing piece for so many people who are out there trying to do this. And you can watch every podcast, you can go to every Bigger Pockets thing, but when you literally have people showing you the way and showing you from experience and like you're hands-on doing it with people looking over your shoulder, it makes a huge difference, right? So I'll still never forget that though.
That's awesome. And I think it's like anything else, Shawn. You mentioned golf. I like to golf. I just got more seriously into it. And that podcasting, anything that we do, like I listened to our old episodes from like when we first started and I'm like, dude, I would never listen to this. Like we're awful. We're awful. Right. And now I feel so comfortable talking to people. Like I feel like I have a good story to tell. I feel like we provide value. I feel confident that people that we're talking to respect what we're doing and vice versa. It's a whole different ball game, right? The golf game, right? Like I'm like, I suck at golf. Well, I play twice a month. So I'm going to suck. Like I haven't done anything to earn being good, right? So now I'm going to the range and I'm like slowly but surely 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And you're like, okay, anything that you do, like the raising money, of course you're going to suck at first. I think that people are afraid of sucking. And then when they suck, they think it validates them sucking and that they don't want to do it anymore. But look, you weren't good in the beginning and then you got to the point that you're at now. So I think it's just like anything.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I want to get into the tactics too, because there's so many different, I guess, ways you can go into raising private capital. I think about raising for a flip, or maybe potentially for a long-term buy and hold, or maybe for a massive syndication, right? You're pulling people's money together. There's so many different avenues. So what do you guys specifically teach? And can you maybe go into some of the nuances or tips and tricks that you guys go through when you have people approach, strangers for money?
Yeah, it's hilarious. What we do in our program and at these live events is we're all about implementation. And the biggest thing we drive home with everybody is this: whether you're raising money for a BRRRR or an Airbnb or a wholesale deal for earnest money deposits or a flip or starting a fund or doing a commercial syndication, raising capital all begins and ends with just basic steps, right? And one of the things people, I don't know, they just convolute sometimes and they get all brainwashed and thinking, I got to have this and I got to do this and I got to have this. The first thing you got to do is put yourself out there to the most random people in the world. Like, I'll never forget Amy telling this story about practicing her 4-second power pitch, right, to an Uber driver. And that's how she would practice because she lived in downtown Chicago, right? And all of a sudden she was practicing it so much, Amy literally has Uber drivers who are private lenders on our deals, right? So like, just the conversations that you're continuing to have, people. When people ask me what I do, I don't say, I started flipping houses and then I got into this and I got into that. We go right into our 4-second power pitch that we drive home, which is I show people how to I offer people double-digit returns backed by real estate, right? Like I go right into every person I come into contact with is a potential private lender. So when I leave my house, whether I'm going to the golf course or I'm going to the grocery store or I'm going to the bank or I'm going to my daughter's daycare, every person I run into is a potential private lender. So the first thing is knowing that, right? Having the attitude of every person I talk to has the ability to fund deals that I want to do. whether on a small scale or a big scale. And if we get enough people together, we can do even bigger things. But here's the most incredible things. The people who I thought had the least amount of money to be lenders ended up being the people with the most money. So you can never judge a book by its cover, meaning you can never assume how much money people really have. So one of the things that I always drive home with people is it doesn't matter what you're raising capital for. The first thing is you got to have confidence. And the second thing is you got to continue to put yourself out there and put that hat on as soon as you leave every single day. And whether it's a 4-second power pitch like the one I just threw out there, or crafting your own around what you do, and maybe talking about your experience, because the whole idea is just planting a seed in those first conversations, whether it's through LinkedIn or whether it's at a networking event. You know, one of the things that we teach our students all the time is stop going where other real estate investors are and start following money. Where does money hang out on a weekly, monthly basis? What networking events can we put ourselves in where people have capital and they don't know what to do with it, right? There's so many people who have money sitting in a checking account or being destroyed in a retirement plan because it's getting eaten up by fees. There's so many people out there who would love to have their money compounded at 6, 8, 10, 12% returns, protected, secured, and insured. But until we put ourselves around those people and in those rooms, we're not giving ourselves the best opportunity to raise capital. So biggest thing is putting yourself out there, always having some confidence to say when people ask you what you do. And again, you go right back to them because you're planting the seed and hopefully it grows and they come back to you and go, well, tell me more about double-digit returns. What do you mean by that? Well, that's a great question. We should set up a meeting and I'll kind of walk you through what we do, my team, our plan, and how we execute that for people just like you, right? That's the goal.
Love it. I do love it. And I think it's easy. We're sales guys, right? Or we've worked in sales or sales managers and have done the whole kind of roadmap, if you will. And it's interesting. It's like, once you get people on the hook or excited about something, right? That's awesome. But then it's the second step. It's like, okay, now how do you actually take this amount of funds and nurture it more so than yours and put it in the right thing? I think that's the scariest part for us about this whole thing is like, we can have a deal and when we risk our cash, it's like we understand what we're getting into, right? And like real estate's a risk. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. More often than not, if you run the numbers properly, you're good. Yeah. But there's a million different avenues in this. I'm thinking us, like we're taking down large multifamily at the moment, but we also sometimes have smaller projects and we just want to give some, take 30 grand in and give someone a 10 to 12% return on it. There's so many different ways to play it, right? But my thought is okay, how do you have the confidence once you bring the people in that it's going to be a successful deal? Are you doing my question here is really, are you doing all the deals yourself, or have you gone and vetted other operators where you've kind of, middlemanned it for people? Because I think there's a different kind of mindset for both ways, but I'm curious on your experience.
We've done both. So, we're in the middle of a 10-unit project right now in San Diego, California. It was I'm going to screw up the numbers and hopefully my wife gets it better on the next podcast. But I believe it was somewhere around a $2.5 million purchase for a 10-unit. It's a 6-unit and a 4-unit building just east of downtown, great location. It was a $2.5 million purchase. It was a $1 million gap funding raise. We did use hard money on the first part because our interest rates were so cheap. On the deal, it was actually somewhat cheaper than private money, all based on how the deal goes. We still had to raise $1 million and we did it literally in 3 phone calls, right? So that deal, we're partnered with a GC who's been in San Diego and been doing the business for over 25 years. They've renovated 300 properties. We vetted them. We made sure they were, good people. They just happened to be students of our RPM program. So it was easier to vet them because we knew their background. So all we did was raise the capital and now we get a very large percentage, right? Some deals we've completely taken down by ourselves, but the process and the system of bringing this thing to fruition is just nurturing your private lenders, right? People understand how to maybe have that initial, private money presentation and that first conversation, but how do you nurture these people, right? What monthly newsletters are you sending them? How are you staying in front of them? But the most important thing I think that we could take away from this, guys, is how direct can we be to literally explain to our private lenders and say this phrase with confidence. Hey guys, at the end of the day, we're going to do our absolute best. The numbers really make sense for us. But we also want you to know that when you invest this money, you have to be okay never seeing it again, because there is risk in investing in real estate. There is a risk in walking across the street, investing in a 401k, investing in, what was that crypto that they said was going to go to the moon because Elon Musk on SNL, right? Like Dogecoin.
Dogecoin, yeah.
Dogecoin, right? So there's risk in investing everything. But when you stand in front of a lender and you say, hey, here's our deal analyzer, here's the numbers, here's the worst case scenario, here's the best case scenario, this is how much money we're going to have to lose in order for you not to get paid. When you walk them through that scenario, but then you look at them with the confidence and just say, hey guys, at the end of the day, you have to be okay never seeing this money ever again. And when you say that with confidence, that builds more trust and that builds more understanding that, holy crap, I can't believe that person just said that.
I love that you just said that, because I think the transparency and you being upfront and the feeling, the human interaction is really what sells people. It's the fact that you don't know it all, that people are like, oh, this guy is just like me and he has a track record that works out, but he's not telling me, hey, I'm going to guarantee you this and I'm going to guarantee you that. And that sets you up for false expectations and failure, and also like a reputation killer if it doesn't work out that way. So we've, in our deals, we present a great opportunity and are totally 100% respectful and okay with people not wanting to invest in it, because it might not be for them. Like it might not be their thing. And then the next one might. And even if that one's not, it's like, we're okay to give away the free education and we just want to help as many people as we can. But I love that, hey, you have to be willing to never see this money again. I think it might sound counterintuitive to people, because I sell them, but I don't look at this as selling as more as it is presenting an opportunity and just finding if it's the right fit. So thank you for sharing that. I think that was great advice.
Let me add to that real quick while you're there, guys, because I think this is important too. If that person that we're trying to raise capital from says no to us, we're going to ask for a referral right then and there, because if they don't, they definitely know someone who will. We've had people we've talked to about lending capital to us. It took them 3 years to come around. But when they finally did, because we were nurturing that network and we were staying in front of them and we were showing them all the things we were doing. But the other thing is not only saying being okay with your money disappearing, be confident and tell people about the bad deals that you've done in the past, because that will build more loyalty. That will build more confidence. The more transparent you are with people, nobody's freaking perfect, right? The greatest investors out there, nobody's perfect. So just wanted to add that to it.
No, and I think that goes back to people wanting to do business with other people that they know, like, and trust. And you build that rapport by being completely transparent. I have not hit 100% every single time. I don't have a flawless batting average. No one has. But like you mentioned, that human aspect, like, it's super relatable. You already just, it's so funny, but even like the 5 seconds that we met you in the beginning, and you dropped the funny analogy about NFL and you did 6 weeks in the league. It's like, dude, you made it 6 weeks. Like, it wasn't a long stretch, but it was cool because it's super relatable. You took the barrier down. I know you're a super driven guy. And I immediately just felt that. I'm like, I played sports. We all thought we were going to make it one day, specifically to whatever league you're in. But little nuances like that. And I forget what they're called. I think it's like an IMI statement in sales, but like the relatable things like, oh, you did this. I also have this experience, X, Y, Z. When you humanize it, it takes the burden off, right? And like, I think the barriers come down, and a lot of people get into these rooms and these pitches, right? Where like people are buttoned up in their suits, and even sometimes on podcasts, you're like, dude, this guy's got the third button up to the top of his chin. You're like, oh man, this is gonna be one of those. So for us, we like to just like, dude, this is us. Take it or leave it. We're not gonna fake anything. And I think it lends a long way. Just a nuance I wanted to bring up. But part B here is, you mentioned a lot of different like lead-ins, right? To have these conversations, the power pitch, and then you got ways to bring down the barrier and have a human interaction. And I want to talk about one of the most important things that I think a lot of people are searching for is like systematizing this and finding an automation flow. And you're talking about nurturing, and there's a lot of things out there today that are super beneficial. You talk about social media, you have a website, you have text platforms, you have CRM systems, you have, there's so many different things. So I don't want to give away all your secret sauce here, but I'm wondering if you could maybe talk to the people that come into your coaching platform. What do you guys show them how to do? And is the system involved in that as well? You mentioned copy and paste a lot. And like, for me, that super resonates. I'm like, dude, I just need someone to be like, here's the we'll bring it back to football, X's and O's, just plug and play, dude. Here you go. Make it sound like yours, but here's the flow that you should be going, because, that's our next stage here. We have all these things going on, but if we can get super organized, I think it's just going to help churn and burn and, scale our business.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's so many CRMs out there, right? There's so many different ways to stay in front of people, whether it's through text campaigns, through social media, through email, right? At the beginning, I don't think anybody should be in CRMs and having these random numbers reaching out to people and these, corporate emails reaching out to people. Private money lending is asset-based lending, but it's relationship-based lending. So I want these people to have my personal phone number. I want them to have my real email, not some corporate email or some company email. I want these people, when they wake up in the middle of the night and they're scared because they just parked, $500,000 with us, to be able to call me, because guess what? I know what that feels like too. So the other part of it is, not only do my wife invest in passive income, but we're private money lenders, right? So we don't just preach it and don't follow through with it. We actively put our money to work all the time. Having over 300 students in our program all over the world, they're always pitching us deals, and we can maybe go raise the capital for them. Like, we don't tell them to rely on that, but if it's a good enough deal and there's equity inside, we'll go raise capital for them. But if it's a good enough deal, like, we'll park money with them, right? And again, that's not guaranteed. That's not a reason why people come in the program. We teach people how to create their own, right, private money lenders. But at the end of the day, if you have a relationship, your personal email should go out. You should have a conversation in that email, not just a blanketed email that just, no, I want to say, hey, Corey, hey, Ryan, we had that amazing conversation about who's your guys' football team, just out of curiosity?
Well, it's going to differ, but I'm Eagles, and he's following Tom Brady around, but Pats, right?
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting topic, dude.
He's a bandwagon guy. He's a bandwagon guy.
I grew up in New England. I did, but yeah, I followed him to Tampa. We got the Super Bowl, so I mean, I'm basically shunned from New England now.
With the Birds, go with the Birds.
Yeah, understood. I'm a Bears fan, so we haven't had a good team since 1985. But like, if we had a conversation about the Eagles in that email sequence, I don't want just a standard email. Hey, Corey, Ryan, just want to update you on all the things that I'm doing, blah, 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 and make it so just blasé, so boring. Hey, Ryan, Corey, it was fun talking to you guys about the rivalry and how some people just followed Tom Brady wherever they were, and some people stuck to their roots like an Eagles fan should. Like, you know what I mean? But that personal connection in an email or a text is so much better than just some automated crap, in my opinion, that just goes out there to the universe. So when I'm really nurturing a private lender, I want it to be as personal as possible. I want them to, because at the end of the day, they're lending money to us, right? They're lending money on the deal. Yeah, it's protected. Yeah, it's secured. Yeah, it's insured, all those things. And here's the deal analyzer. And here's the promissory note. Here's the hazard insurance policy. Here's the mortgage deed and deed of trust. Here's all the things you frickin' need. But at the end of the day, you're really investing in us. And we want you to have that trust in us. So when I'm sending stuff out, especially at the beginning, I'm making it as personal as possible to stay in front of my list and nurture my list.
Yeah, this is kind of like a sales discussion 101, which is really like a lot about what happens in life and how to get to different places that you want to get to. I think the key is really understanding how human connection works, though, in that. And the reason why I say that is I can give you an example of somebody who came to my door the other day to sell me some, I think it was like, it might have been even just switching from Verizon to Comcast. Yeah. Young kid, and I liked him, but he was terrible at what he did. And I was trying to not coach him, but just like, I'll give you an example. I opened the door and he goes, "Hey man, I like your shoes." And I was like, fuck. Like, I know what he's trying to do. You know, he's trying to create that human connection, but I think it has to feel real. It has to feel genuine. You're not going to send this email like, hey, go Eagles, if you didn't really like have enough of a conversation about it, right? So it's a learned skill. I don't think people are born with it, but there's a lot of things that you can do to really understand people, how they think, what sparks true interest, and how to be genuine. Also, self-deprecation too, I think, is a big thing, and not too much, but like I always try to make fun of myself in sales scenarios. Like, as an example, I'm a third generation in my family business for my W-2 job, and I'm holding on to it because it's been good to me and my family. I care a lot about my family, but when I'm on sales calls, I always say, yeah, I'm third generation. The third generation is normally the one who screws it up, so I'm trying not to do that. And just breaking that barrier, like they're like, I do it almost every time. It just as they're like, all right, I'm gonna relax a little bit.
I'm gonna put my walls down, right?
Exactly. So there's a way to do it and a way not to do it, and I hope that kid ends up being successful in sales. I think he was like 17, so good for him going door to door, because that is tough. But I love the personal touch. It just has to be done kind of in the right way.
Well, it's kind of cool. The one of the things that I do, just because of I don't think any of us, if you're a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, aunt, uncle, if we're all in sales at the end of the day, right? And one of the things I do for our community is actually teach a sales negotiation series, because one of the things that I've noticed that some real estate investors are really good at finding deals and funding deals, but they're just horrible at communication and they're horrible at negotiation. So what I do is I'll take, small groups, 10, 12 people, and I'll put them in a room for 2 days, and I'll just teach them rapport building strategies and what words to leave out, phrases to leave out. How do you take someone who says your offer is too low, right, and turn that into a deal? How do you take a contractor that says, that bid is way too low, there's no way I can do it for that? So what I do is I help students in our program turn, no's into yeses, but do it in a way of form communication. So here's some for your listeners, because actionable stuff is what you guys want on this podcast. The fastest way to build rapport and trust, you guys have heard of FORD, right? Family, occupation, recreation, dreams, recreation, whatever you want to call it, right? I like GFORD, right? Geography, right? Family, occupation, recreation, what are your dreams? So geography. The reason why I always start with geography is no matter where somebody's from, you can always connect it to you, right? If you've been on this earth a little bit longer than, I'm 42 years old. How old am I? I think I'm 42 or 40. I don't even know anymore. I act like I'm 18. So I always want to connect with someone's geography first, because instantly when you connect with someone's geography, you instantly are just like them. And that wall, like you said earlier, instantly falls down. So when you say you're an Eagles fan, I'll be like, that's so cool. A guy I played football with in college was actually a defensive back coach. His name is DK McDonald. He went through up the ranks, but now he's the D-back coach. He was a corner on my football team. He actually was a coach after, and I still keep in touch with him today. So instantly we have a connection to where you're from. So I always start with geography. Then I get into, do you have a family? Everybody loves telling their story. Everybody loves talking about family. Sometimes you don't even have to get to recreation or their dreams and goals, because by the time you talk about geography, family, and what they do for a living, guess what? They're asking you the exact same things you're asking them. And that rapport and trust is pretty fast if you do it correctly. If you go into the sense of, hey, I'm interested to learn about you, right? Not wanting me to tell them everything that I can do for them, right? It's important to understand that.
I think that people are looking at this sometimes as sales as like a trick. That's where I think like that's what the outside world thinks of sales. When it's in reality, it's like you're coming to a common agreement and bringing common value to each other. So that's important factors. Like when you say all these, like I've never even heard of G4. I think that's awesome. When you say that, I think people might be listening like, well, I don't want to go with this plan to try to trick somebody to think I care about them, right? But it's not really what it is. It's a genuine.
Oh, it's genuine.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my spiel in sales, and I know you love that stuff too.
I do love it. I think it's really just teaching people. There's a couple of books out there. I think like How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of them, and then
Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss, little different, way different actually. More like negotiation style, but there's a lot of psychology in there, right? And it's teaching people like once again, human connection. And I really like it's social cues. There's so many times you mentioned this. There's so many absolute studs in certain fields, but they're like robots. When you try to have a conversation with them, you're like, oh my God, like get me out of here. Like I can't relate. Like they're not giving me anything. It's just super awkward. And I've really found that like you don't have to be the brightest bulb or the sharpest tool in the box, but you can be an amazing communicator, and you are going to be 10 times more successful than someone that has the brain of Einstein. Just because, and maybe not Einstein, but just to give an analogy there, we've been able to navigate so many different conversations and have literally like conversations with CEOs or super successful people that we probably never would have had we not sharpened our skills in communication over time.
Sorry about that, fellas. This is me in the Zoom world trying to multitask here, so I apologize. No, I agree with you 100%. You're looking at a guy who struggled through school. I went to college for 5 years because they wouldn't let me stay for 6. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big believer in education, but I'm also a big believer that the things you learn just from dealing with people ultimately make you more successful.
Okay, so just to put a bow on this part of the conversation, I just want to we talked about negotiation, talked about sales, and you raising private capital, and just all the tips and tricks that you've kind of teased to us a little bit. We appreciate them. I want to talk to your coaching program and basically what you guys offer, because I think a lot of people, specifically us, are interested in the next step. Maybe we have some deals on the table that we're raising for, we're co-GPing for, or we are going to be putting together some creative projects. So we need to do a burr, we need to do a flip, and we don't want to use our own dough, but we're willing to give people 10 to 12% on theirs. So can you talk to what's all-encompassing within your programs, if there's different tiers, or what basically you and Amy offer? Because we're seeing the sign in the background for the whole episode, and I want to talk RPM.
Yeah, so RPM, like I said, was just born in COVID, and it was just something my wife did on a whim, and we had no idea it was going to grow to the scale that it's grown. So why do people want to raise capital? That's the first thing we do. So whenever we enroll a student into a program, we talk to them, we have a conversation first, because if we can't be of value to them, we don't want them in our community, because if someone's looking to use their own money for everything they're doing and they want to do this and this, like, not dilly-dally, if that makes sense, but like if someone wants to scale a business and understands they can't do it unless they raise private money. If someone wants to get into multiple asset classes, Warren Buffett always talks about infinite return, right? What is infinite return? Infinite return is when you don't have a dollar in something and you make something, right? And that's why we kind of created this, because so many people had a challenge with it. So the first thing we do is just give you that ability to copy and paste our templates, our scripts. What do we use? What is our nurturing sequence? How do we stay in front of our private money lenders? What are the frequently asked questions that people are asked? So we literally have training modules, right, of students going through the program. But what's unique, because Amy and I have been a part of many coaching programs and will continue to be a part of coaching programs because we believe in mentorship. We would not be where we are today without it. There's so many coaching programs that say, hey, read this book, watch these videos, get out there and good luck. One of the things that separates our program is, number one, we're very niche specific. We solve the money problem for people, right? But we don't just have you watch a bunch of videos and then say, okay, Corey, Ryan, good luck. We wish you nothing but the best. As you're learning how to raise capital, my wife will literally say, okay, now press pause, go download this template that I gave you, go implement what I just taught you, and when you're done, come back and press play. So what we learned from all these other coaching programs that we were a part of is what was good and what was great. What separated all these different coaching programs? And the best coaching programs have you implement what you're learning real time. Because if you're not implementing it, you're not really learning it. You could read every book. You guys, I always say, have you guys read this, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yep, years ago.
What's the 4th habit?
No idea.
Right,
I forget. Sorry.
There's only 7 habits in the book, guys. You only had to. So that's a great example of, hey, we take in this information. It's really good info, but like, okay, what's number 4? What's number 5? Right? Amy is so just extremely talented at teaching people while they're learning, having them implement while they learn. So the reason why our students, and not all of them, right? The reason why so many of our students achieve such great success is because they're implementing and learning at the same time. And that is really how you learn. You don't learn by watching a bunch of videos and then getting out there. So number one is the training module. It's education implementation. We do 2 weekly group coaching calls for our entire community. And then we have a closed Facebook community just for our students, because our students lend to each other. They borrow from each other. They share best practices. We're teaching our students, and we're software updating like Apple, our program, all the time, because our students will be on a Tuesday or a Thursday call and teach us something new that they did, and it'll blow our mind. It'll be like, okay, that has to go in our curriculum now. So as much as we're teaching our students, they're teaching us so much more. So the community aspect of what our students get to be a part of it is amazing. But we literally get on a phone with people and talk to them about their goals to make sure we can be of service to them. And if we can't, we just flat out tell them, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit. And we'll explain to them why. And that's the most important part to us. If you're going to be a part of this community, we want you to get the most out of it. So why do people want to learn how to raise private money? They're sick of using their own money and they're brick rich and cash poor. They can't scale the business. They want to get into multiple asset classes, and they want what Warren gets, which is infinite return, where they're not pulling dollars out of their own pocket. So they can take that money that they do have and invest it. So what also is unique about the program is not only is it niche specific, but it's lifetime access. Unlike a lot of coaching programs, we don't put an expiration date on our coaching. So once you're in continuously, which is special in this world of education and knowledge.
That is very special, to be honest. There's always some hidden fees, or like, oh, you need this. It's 50 grand a year, 20. And you're like, dude, okay, that's literally a house in 2 years. I mean, 100 grand, it's crazy. But that's just for context what's out there. And I was curious, but thanks for sharing. That's great.
Yeah.
So before we wind down the show, I just want to get a little snapshot. Maybe if you could pick a deal that you've done, and just the high level, but maybe whether it's a syndication, a private money deal, give an example of maybe a purchase price, the capital that you raised, what an LP return would look like on that, and how you exited, and maybe some cash flow in between it. Just one, because there's people that are listening that maybe want to join the program, and I'm curious about what's something that you've done that you could relate to a good reason why to join.
Yeah. So what I always tell people is, anytime you get into investing, the first thing you got to do is figure out what you want to invest in, right? Once you figure out what you want to invest in, whether it's commercial deals, whether it's BRRRRs, the process of putting yourself out there, we talked about that earlier. Whenever we do a commercial deal, the first thing we think about is, how do we have as little lenders as possible, right? Because more lenders create more headaches, no matter how good your deal is. So anytime we offer up an opportunity for investors, and we're always looking at commercial deals, we're always looking at commercial opportunities. We have over 300 students all over the world. So we have people everywhere in all different asset classes who are offering up opportunities for us to be the capital raisers, or for us to go into it with them. So I always want to take care of my investors, but I also want to put my investors in a position where we can increase our control of the asset and lower their risk as much as possible. So what we've noticed, especially over the last couple of years with the market really trying to figure out what it's doing, is we've never been so on deals than we ever have than right now, right? This San Diego deal was a home run deal. It was a no-brainer. We actually had friends of ours who were in on the deal too, who were trying to get it from us. And when we found out they were in on the deal, we knew it was a good deal, right? And we knew that we were doing the right thing by our lenders. So whenever we look at a deal, whether we're raising $1 million, $500,000, we want to take care of our investors. But the other thing that a lot of people don't think about when we're doing commercial syndications is the return on investment for the invested capital is one thing, but the tax benefits are a whole different thing. And I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, but there came a point in my life where I didn't need to make any more money. I needed to lower my tax liability, right? Because Uncle Sam's always going to come for you, no matter if you're a business owner or not. They're always going to want theirs. So I started figuring out, man, I could park money as an LP into commercial deals, and now we got depreciation. Now we got renovation costs that they're going to deduct. Now all of a sudden it shows that I made X, But after paper losses, like we're taking a significant loss here on our tax. So the other thing that I want to do when I'm offering investors to be a part of our commercial deals is not to just look at the IRR, right? Or the total cash on cash return. It's what kind of tax benefits are we going to get from this? And this is why I send them to their CPAs and accountants. And if they don't have one, I'm going to send them to my real estate investing accountant, right? Who specializes in helping people understand that stuff. So one thing that I really haven't talked enough about going through this talk with you guys is how important your team is to people feeling confident and lending you money, right? When I started this thing, I was 29 years old, right? I had just declared bankruptcy. I just lost 4 houses. My credit score was like 502, right? So like I didn't have, the pot or the window, right? And one thing that I was taught early on by my mentors is, hey, even though you're not where you want to be, or even though you don't have experience, the people who you surround yourself with is whose experience you're going to leverage. So your contractor, how long they've been doing it, give them before and afters, your real estate attorney, your title company, your real estate agent, your stager, your appraiser, your inspector. You start going through all the team members in which you have, and you leverage those team members. At the end of the day, as investors, our responsibility is to find and fund deals. Our team takes care of the rest. So whether you're brand new or even myself 15 years later, I leverage my team more than myself. So when I'm talking to commercial, deals, I better have an insanely good property management company. I better have an insanely good construction team. I better have an insanely good accountant bookkeeper who's taking care of all the X's and O's, right? So leveraging your team, but also making your investors understand, hey, we're going to offer you great returns. You're going to walk away with great cash flow. But at the end of the day, like, don't look at X percentage like you have to have this, because you have to see all the other, add-ins that are being thrown in here. And the more conservative we are with our commercial deals, our flips, the more conservative we are and we underpromise and overdeliver, that's what keeps those private money lenders coming back for even more.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to touch on one thing. And you talked about team members. There's so many different operators out there too for commercial deals and things like that. And it's funny when you go to vet people, there's people put on a facade, right? And there's a lot of it's marketing, right? You're like, okay, how do I weave through the BS and find out who actually knows what they're doing? And we've gone through this enough times to talk about partnerships, and we've come across someone recently where we just kept looking at the team after team, and it was like a Harvard grad, MIT, just crazy people in the deal. We're like, dude, this is the team we need to be part of. This guy he put the friggin' what do you want to call it? The A-team, the Avengers together. And I'm like, dude, this is amazing. And we've seen other that have 2 guys, and you're like, oh, okay. They're just 2 men in it. And so for us, it gave us way more confidence. You're absolutely right. It's like, not only are you looking out for the operator, but you're looking for the team members in place, whether it's the CPA, the bookkeeper, construction team. Oh my God, there's a million of them, property manager. So you can run through the list, but you have to go through and make sure every single box is checked, because those are the people actually fueling the entire thing, not just the 2 guys that might be running the webinar.
Well, and sometimes we'll show people how much we believe in the deal by parking some of our own money into it, which goes against everything that we teach. But hey, guys, we believe in this deal so much. Not only are we going to walk away with whatever our share is for putting this thing together, but we're parking X amount of dollars in this deal because that's how much we believe in it. And again, the more you can ask people to do something, right, and the more you're offering the opportunities to invest, you have to show them that you do it yourself. Because if you're not doing it yourself, you're kind of a hypocrite, right? So hey, I'm never going to ask you to do something I haven't done myself. As a matter of fact, let me show you. Let me show you the deals I'm working on. Let me show you the commercial deals I'm doing as just a money person and as an operator. Let me show you the loans I have out as a private money lender. I got nothing to hide here. So here's everything in a nutshell to give you confidence in parking money with us.
Totally. And I will say, there's something about it, and I don't know what it is. And maybe it's camaraderie, the team aspect, but once they deposit that money and they realize you're also in on the deal, you're not just kind of floating by the wind. You guys are on the front lines going to war together, and it's fun and it's cool. And you're you can go to sleep at night, right? You're like, all right, we're both taking the risk. We're both going after this. We believe in this. And so that I've just felt a lot more confident going into deals with certain people, knowing, right, we always get asked, hey, do you guys have dough on this? And like 99% of the time, it's yes. We're always trying to get away from that, right? To like skillfully, go to OPM. But there's something about it too. The tax benefit, that's what I really wanted to touch on. Is the last thing for me. I know Core's got a couple, but that is such a new way to position things. You get into the upper echelon of people with dough, right? You get into, I don't know, you talk to doctors, you talk to lawyers or whatever. You follow the money, as you mentioned. And a lot of these guys and gals are making so much money on their W-2, and they're like, I have a huge tax burden at the end of the year. And half the people raising capital and going into these deals probably don't go that avenue. And I think it's a huge miss and something important to bring up, because we haven't really talked about that on many of our other shows when we talk about these types of deals. But that is going to save, like, we had a huge tax bill last year. And I'm like, he looked at me when you started talking about that, and I'm like, dude, I think he's thinking what I'm thinking. We should just dump this money into friggin' syndication or something to get some depreciation and drop the tax bill. But I appreciate you bringing it up, because it makes me think my gears are turning about different ways to pitch and avenues to go down, and just things we might not have thought about off that.
Yeah, totally. So that was good to bring up too, because we don't talk about the taxes a lot. One of the new questions we have here, Shawn, is we started asking it last week, and I kind of like how it's forming out, is what is one trait or habit that you've developed recently, or maybe you developed it a while ago, that you feel like has made a big impact on you, your personal life, your business, your investing career, or something else that you feel like is impactful for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I was blessed to learn about was how money works, right? And I don't think any of us were taught this by our family members. I think all of us were taught to, penny saves, penny earned, put it away for a rainy day, right? Credit cards are evil, like all those things that everybody talks about. But it's funny, all the people who told us all those things, they're not financially where they want to be, right? And so I learned really early on when I got into this world of investing, the more I understood how money works, the better and more confident people were going to be to invest with me. So what I started doing is just learning about inflation. And I just started learning about, what does the Treasury Department do, right? How are we printing money? Like, how does, how do they decide whether to turn the machine on or off, right? I started learning about debt and what is debt? What is an asset? What is a liability? And I started thinking about, with great mentors educating me on this, where is our world at? Where are we personally at? And when you connect the dots and you start showing what wealthy people do with their money, and you start showing people like what they're doing with their money, like Warren Buffett, I'm sure has a 401k, but he's not relying on that freaking thing to retire him. And if anybody watching this podcast is relying on their 401k, unless it's self-directed investing in real estate and making tax-free profits, they got another thing coming. Because again, even people who are in the investment world will tell you how bad those things are when it comes to fees and when it comes to the robbery of people's wealth, and how Wall Street is just kind of pulling the wool over their eyes. So like, when I teach private money lenders, the majority of my private money that I raise most of the time comes from people's retirement accounts, because number one, people don't know how they work. And number two, 7 out of 10 people have a retirement account. They don't know who actually manages it. So think about that for a second. 7 out of 10 people have money parked somewhere. They don't know where it is. They don't know who's managing it. They don't know what it's invested in. All they did was circle, I want to be little aggressive, I want to be moderately aggressive, or I want to be really aggressive. And then all of a sudden 2008 comes and my 401k turned into a 2OK, right? And it wasn't because I didn't know what it was because of lack of education. And so many people are going to see this at the end, right? If you think about a 401k statement that you get in the mail, it's the only statement there is where they don't show any of the expenses, right? When I get my bill from my property manager, I see the gross, I see the expenses, and I see my net, right? At a 401k, when you get that statement, all you're seeing is the net. You don't see every single little fee that's inside of it. and you don't see what's really happened to that money. So I started early on. One of the traits, and I'm continuing to do it today to answer your question long-winded, is I learn as much as I can about money and what money is doing and what money's going. We just went to an alternative asset summit that my wife got to speak at. And I literally got my notebook here, guys. I got probably 40 pages worth of notes because people are starting to wake up and get out of the traditional way of investing. And they want to start parking it with people like us who know what they're doing in real estate. People are alternatively investing in real estate now more than ever because they're waking up to the volatility. They're waking up to understanding, hey, if we're printing all this money and the value of the dollar goes down, that means assets have to go up over the long term. Yeah, there's going to be, ebb and flow, but over time, assets will go up. Since 1963, when the National Association of Realtors started keeping track, we've gone up 3.6% every year since 1963. So when you start talking about money and you know more about money than the person you're sitting across from, they're a lot more confident giving you their money. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I did. I wasn't a finance guy. Guys, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Animal House. That literally describes my college career, right? And I did a little football on the side. I wasn't a finance guy. I wasn't a math guy. I didn't get into understanding how money works and how math works until I got into real estate. But I also understood, the more I understood about money, the more confidence I would put into others to want to work with me, whether it was the private money side or the contractor side, the realtors I was associating with, all those things. So I think the greatest thing that my mentors taught me was to always be learning about what money is doing, where is it going, and where do most people put it? Where are the average people doing with their money, and what could they be doing with it?
I think it's super important to bring up, and I appreciate that you had a lot of nuggets in there that I wanted to touch on, but we are wrapping up. I'll just touch on two really quick. You mentioned, we already talked tax benefits, right? But then also talking about the 401ks and the 7 out of 10 people, literally just circling the dots. I've gone around in my W-2 job and literally had to coach every single person on my team how to set up their 401k, make sure they had one, and then potentially what to invest it in. Not, I'm not an advisor, right? I don't know this, but this is what I've done, and here you go. Set yourself up for the future. But then again, it's still going to take so much time unless you're bumping up the contributions to 15 to 30%, something crazy, right? I played around with mine for once again, tax benefits. But I really like you mentioning both of those avenues when you're talking about money and educating people, right? Because it's another easier barrier to bring down. It's like, dude, I have to get into real estate. I got to put my money into it. Totally makes sense. Another important thing you talked about too is the conversations on money and what your parents tell you not to do or people around you, that the money stories growing up, right? It's the risks, or I'm trying to phrase this the right way, but a lot of times the fear they invoke in you is because it hasn't worked for them. Everyone's talking about their experience in life. Just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean it's not going to work for me. And when you're younger getting involved in this, and I mentioned it's your risk tolerance is a little bit higher. I've noticed as I've got married, got a family, have a couple more assets, I'm ooh, it's a little scarier because you're taking care of something else and trying to make it survive, and you don't want to muck it up because it's not just you who's relying on you anymore, right? So there's a lot there, but I think it's important to bring up is don't just listen to the person that's told you about money your whole life. What does their balance sheet look like? How are they doing? And that you can kind of get fooled by someone with the big house and the big cars because a lot of that might be on loan, but it's very important to get into these kinds of conversations and educate people about money and educate yourself about money, because it really is this changing of the guard I'm seeing as well. And you gave us a lot of stats there. Super important. We have a lot of people reaching out to us recently about this, and especially with the podcast. So all right, dudes, I get it. I need to get into real estate. How do I do it? And so that's why we have guys on like you. So just thanks for the masterclass today. I think you gave us actionable advice. That's our podcast. That's what we want to do. And I can't say that many episodes that I can point to in the last couple of weeks have given us as much action and tips and tricks as you have. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And going back to one quick thing, when you said all the outside people, the noise, right? I always call it the little voice, and comes from a book by Blair Singer called Little Voice Mastery. And every time people are telling me I'm crazy, I know I'm doing something right? I'll never forget starting to park money into second generation shopping centers. everyone's like, dude, what are you talking about? Retail's dead. Amazon's going to take over the world. Why are you parking all this money into second generation shopping centers like, the TJ Maxx and the Marshalls and all these things? And I said, well, guys, I'm just thinking the way I'm supposed to be thinking, which is if the middle class is shrinking, we're either going to be poor or we're going to be rich. And Marshalls and TJ Maxx, if it wasn't for those types of stores, my mom wouldn't be able to clothe her kids, right? Being one of 7 kids. So I start thinking with my logical brain, but when everybody else tells me that I'm crazy, I know I'm on the right path, and I just got to ignore that outside noise.
Cool, man. That was great advice. I like that. I haven't heard about thought about the Marshalls, TJ Maxx, and how it's probably pretty difficult to maintain a lifestyle without that for 6 kids, 7 kids, like you said. So, Shawn, we really appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. I want to talk about your event, November 4th and 5th in Austin, Texas, raising private capital. That's what it's all about. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the event, they want to potentially go to the event, or just maybe network with you?
Yeah, if you guys probably put the link below somehow, some way, I'd greatly appreciate it. You can go to my wife's Instagram at Amy Mahjoory. You can go to my handle as well at Shawnee Mac and find us out there. But this is going to be an insane event. It's our 3rd one. We're doing it here in Austin, Texas, which is special. It's October, so it's not going to be 106 degrees like it was 2 weeks ago. But only come to this event if you're an implementer, right? If you're someone who just wants to sit back, relax, and take a bunch of notes and listen to some people talk about, what they've done, that's not what this event is. We're making you bring your laptops, you're bringing your phones, you're firing text messages. We're going to set up your LinkedIn account. We're going to fix your social medias. We're going to show you guys how to raise capital real time. This is an implementation event. It's not an education event. It's an implementation event where we're literally going to show you from A to Z, soup to nuts, how we raise capital with our steps, with our systems, with our scripts. Day 2, we're bringing in a bunch of great speakers. But what's so cool about these speakers, and they cover a lot of different asset classes, is we are making our speakers giving you actionable items at this event. So they're not just going to speak to you for an hour. They're going to speak to you, and then they're going to have you do something. So if you're an implementer, if you're a hands-on learner, if you're someone who's sick of going to these events and just taking a bunch of notes and then never seeing those notes again, or not being able to remember the 7 habits or the 4th habit, whatever I quizzed you guys on earlier, this is about implementation. So if you're someone who's a hands-on learner, you're an implementer, this is going to be a great event. November 4th, 5th, Austin, Texas, Saturday and Sunday. You're not going to want to miss it. But yeah, my wife's Instagram, my Instagram, and I'm sure we can put a link in here as well. Would love to see you. You're going to get to know us. We're not people who speak on a stage and then go run and hide from people. You're going to touch gloves with us. We're going to shake hands. By the end, we're all going to hug because we're going to fall in love. It's going to be a great event, November 4th and 5th in Austin, Texas. And it's an implementation event. You guys will love it.
You heard it here first. If you're looking for love, go to Austin. November.
Hey, man, that's how I met my wife, right, at a real estate event. So
that's true.
If you're single,
once again, relating to people. This guy can relate to friggin' a stick in a rock. All right, well, go to raisingpm.com if you want more information. We'll also link it to the show notes. I also want to give a quick plug here. We are going to be having your wife, Amy, on in a couple weeks. It might actually be right after this episode. So check for the back-to-back. If not, for whatever reason, that it's not back-to-back, make sure to check out her episode on Bigger Pockets. It's how we got in touch. Amy had basically went through the 4-second, I think it's 4-second power pitch or 4-step power pitch, and really went even like a step-by-step guide on how to raise private capital. It was a 4-segment episode, like it's literally 4 different episodes that were broken down, but it's a great pairing to this episode with Shawn. And I think that people will really get to know you guys a little bit more from having both sides of the coin. And then go to raisingpm.com if you want to meet them both down in Austin on the 4th and 5th. And I really think you won't regret it because we've learned a lot and it's only been an hour. So thanks so much, Shawn.
My pleasure, guys. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.